What's good, YouTube, man? It's Steels, man. I'm here with another reaction video for y'all boys and girls, ladies and gents, you feel me? And today we got the worst deaths in human history. Shh. I'm about to see something diabolical, man. Nah, but at the same time, I need y'all to follow me on Instagram, bro. I'm finna drop it right here, bro. I'm finna drop my Instagram right here, bro. Follow it. Please follow it. And at the same time, man, I need y'all to send me videos to watch, bro. I need some videos to watch, man. If you send me a video to watch, I'm gonna drop your name. I'm gonna shout you out in the video, bro. Thank y'all, man, for watching, man. Let's get right into it, man.
While our show is all about survival, sometimes in some unfortunate scenarios, that's simply off the table. In today's episode, we'll examine 7 of the most brutal and bizarre deaths in human history. And let me warn you, this one's not for the squeamish. What tiny mistake led to one of the most gruesome diving accidents ever? How did a Disney attraction become a rotating death chamber? And what horrifying fate was waiting for an Arby's manager?
Death, 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 death.
Hisashi Ouchi, the most radioactive man. For a nuclear plant worker in Japan, sadly, his claim to fame was becoming the most radioactive man ever. And no, he didn't get any cool superpowers. It all started on September 30th, 1999, when 35-year-old Hisashi Ouchi went to work at a nuclear fuel processing plant in Tokamura, Japan.
Okay.
He and 2 other workers were tasked with purifying uranium oxide to produce fuel rods for an experimental reactor. What could go wrong? Ouchi stood by the large fuel tank holding an industrial-grade funnel while his co-worker poured a little too much uranium oxide into it. Suddenly, there was a blinding flash of blue light, a sign of a nuclear reaction gone wrong.
Hey, that's like some superhero movie shit, you feel me? Like, bruh. Like, you know how like Spider-Man got bit? It's nothing like that. But this something that happened. Yeah, my bad, y'all. I had to stretch out. Whew. Something like this, you know what I'm saying? Movies would have created a superhero for sure.
Just moments later, Hisashi absorbed more radiation than possibly any person before him, around twice the lethal dose in humans. He arrived at the hospital with a swollen red face and bloodshot eyes.
一気に日焼けをしちゃったぐらいの赤さを帯びてて、手がすごい腫れてて、でそっちが痛いっていう風に言ってて。
But just a day later, things started to get ugly. Hisashi's stomach was swollen, his body ached with pain, and he was having trouble breathing. By day 6, a specialist had examined his bone marrow and determined he was no longer generating any new cells. His DNA was literally disintegrating.
Damn.
A week later, Ouchi was given a blood stem cell transplant courtesy of his sister, but it didn't help. He began developing blisters all over his body. His skin started falling off, and he had to be fed intravenously. Damn. At this point, most doctors would consider Hisashi a lost cause. But because he was such a unique case study, they kept him alive with constant blood transfusions and tried many experimental treatments. Through all this, his pain only got worse. Poor guy,
put him down,
really living up to the Ouchi name. Sorry, I couldn't resist. All jokes aside, after 83 excruciating days, just a few days before Christmas, Hisashi died of cardiac arrest due to multiple organ failure. The Japanese government ruled that a lack of regulatory oversight and safety training at the nuclear plant was to blame. Speaking of blame, our next story shows why being a failed leader in the 17th century had gruesome consequences. Johan de Witt, the Dutch dinner of death. If you think politics are messy today, well, you're not wrong. But they're nothing like the late 1600s in the Netherlands. For the ruler of Holland at the time,
hey, I be thinking like, bro, it was no deodorant, none of that back then. No soap. Bro, I know them niggas stink, gang. Real shit. I know this nigga right here is musty as shit. He look musty as shit.
Johan de Witt. Life was good. The Dutch Empire was one of the greatest powers in Europe, and the money from their booming trade empire was pouring in. Like his father before him,
boat smell like
Johan
booty.
gained the respect of his people for his political skills. He negotiated peace talks with England and other European countries, keeping conflict at bay. That was until 1672, when Louis XIV of France declared war against the Dutch. Despite having England by their side, the Dutch were quickly invaded, and things weren't looking so hot for Johann's political career. Every conflict seems to find a scapegoat, and the Dutch people picked Johann. Yearning for a better leader, citizens embraced de Witt's rival William III of the House of Orange-Nassau. Meanwhile, Johann's brother Cornelis was arrested and tortured for conspiring against William. Johann went to visit his brother in The Hague to try to settle the matter, but little did he know that a large crowd was waiting for him outside. With no guards around, an angry mob dragged the two brothers out and began literally ripping them apart, piece by piece. Mangled and torn, the townsfolk stripped them naked and hung their bloodied bodies up by their feet. And this is where things really went south. While details are murky and have been debated by historians, it's been said that their bodies were cut into pieces and eaten, with one member of the mob swallowing an eyeball. This is why you invest in good security, folks. This next story brings a whole meaning to breaking under pressure. It's been said that offshore oil rigs are one of the most dangerous places to work. It's high risk, high reward, but if you're considering it as a career, this story might make you change your mind. On Saturday, November 5th, 1983, in the Norwegian sector of the North Sea, 4 deep-sea saturation divers were routinely servicing underwater equipment on the Byford Dolphin oil rig.
Okay, they're just doing their job.
Saturation divers have a pretty unique job. They descend to depths of up to 500 feet or more and can spend up to 28 days on a job, living in a cramped, highly pressurized chamber where they eat and sleep. It takes a whole crew to pull it off, from a team operating the crane attached to the diving bell, a crew to monitor the divers.
I ain't gonna lie, something like that, if I ain't making $1 million a year, hey, it's over with, gang. I ain't gonna lie, you ain't gonna see me down there. I'm already afraid of the ocean. I can't front. I can't go deep in the ocean. If I go deep in the ocean, I think it's a shark, or I think of whales, or I think of jellyfish. Nigga, I don't even give a fuck if it's a squid, nigga. Octopus, I don't give a fuck. Yeah, I can't. No.
And even cooks to prepare the meals.
Gotta pay me $1 million a year.
However, the most crucial role in the operation is that of the tenders. These guys unspool the air supply tubes and communication wires, called the umbilical, connecting the divers to the surface. Their literal lifeline. For William Crammond, it was a job he had performed many times. Part of his duty was to help the divers safely depressurize in living chambers on the rig's surface. That morning, Crammond safely escorted 2 divers to one of 2 pressurized living chambers by carefully connecting and disconnecting the highly pressurized diving bell. To avoid decompression sickness, commonly known as the bends, saturation divers have to slowly acclimatize to normal pressure over a long period to prevent gas bubbles from forming in their bloodstream. Crammond and another tender, Martin Saunders, prepped the other 2 divers to enter the first chamber. To do this safely, the diving bell was meant to be detached only once the chamber doors were completely shut. But sadly, whether it was poor timing or an equipment malfunction, the door wasn't fully closed. Instantly, 9 atmospheres of pressure, over 130 pounds per square inch, exploded outward. The diving bell pummeled Crammond to death and seriously injured Saunders. But they got off easy. Inside the chambers, 3 divers, Edwin Arthur Coward, Roy P. Lucas, and Bjorn Bergerson, were soda streamed from the inside. The nitrogen in their bloodstream rapidly formed gas bubbles and killed them instantly from the explosive decompression. But the diver who had it the worst was Truls Hellevik. He was standing right in front of the door of the diving bell when the pressure was released, immediately sucking his body through the narrow opening. It was broken.
Oh, bro, that shit. Oh my gosh, they folded him up, gang. Oh man.
Broken into several pieces and spewed out on the deck as if he had been thrown into a life-sized meat grinder. Thankfully, the accident led to sweeping reform in commercial diving safety. Nowadays, saturation divers are slowly being replaced by remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs. Now, that's a job that actually makes sense for a robot to take. Speaking of, this next story justifies my crippling fear of animatronics. Deborah Gale Stone, The Last Trip to Disneyland. Disneyland is full
Damn.
of adrenaline-pumping rides like
Disneyland?
Space Mountain and the slow but spooky Haunted Mansion. They say it's the happiest place on Earth. Well, that may be true for some people. For 18-year-old Deborah Gale Stone, it was the scariest. The beloved theme park has had its fair share of tragedies over the years, but nothing compares to this one. It was a sunny summer day in July 1974.
Okay.
Deborah was working as a hostess at the Disneyland Resort in Anaheim, California. The perfect job to save up for college. Deborah greeted guests and welcomed them to the hot new attraction, America Sings, a rotating carousel of animatronic animals singing about US history.
Do they still have this
Guests
up?
would sit in one of the 6 seating areas surrounding the turning platform. These were split up using divider walls, turning every 4 minutes as the show continued. The show was a big success, but just 9 days after its grand opening, it became Deborah's final destination. After the 24-minute show, there was a 45-second interval during which the carousel stopped, allowing guests to leave. Then, the machine kicked back into gear. At around 11 p.m., one of the last shows of the night, Deborah ushered everyone out and was getting ready to welcome the next group of eager guests. At this point, the outer ring of the attraction would spin and bring in the next seated group. But sadly, Deborah was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was trapped in a small gap between the stationary stage and the moving wall. Her screams were muffled and then went silent with a crunch. She was crushed to death in what could only be described as a giant vice. The audience members who heard her screams believed it was part of the act. But as they continued into the show's intro, a crowd member called for help. Sadly, by the time the emergency staff arrived, it was too late for Deborah. Disney launched an investigation and shut down the attraction. Temporarily. It reopened just 3 days later.
Damn.
Are you kidding me? To prevent further accidents, they installed safety lights and the rotating walls were swapped out with breakaway versions, in case you don't want to be crushed to death. But the real kicker? Deborah's parents filed a lawsuit against Disneyland and were only given a small settlement.
Nah, that's
Talk about
crazy.
being taken for a ride.
Shit.
Now, this next story also involves being trapped and will send
That's
shivers
insane,
down
bro.
your spine. Niuet Le, a chilling death at Arby's. Fast food workers are considered some of the hardest
McDonald's
workers,
french fries
and we
go crazy.
fully
I'm
respect their
hungry
hustle.
as shit right now.
For
I
a
could
lot
go
of
for
folks,
some McDonald's french
it's
fries.
literally how they survive. But as with any high-stakes workplace, accidents do happen. For one Arby's manager in 2023, sadly, it was an accident that could have been easily avoided.
A Houston woman froze to death.
It's one of the most horrific deaths you can imagine.
63-year-old Texas native Niuet Le and her son were transferred to a new Arby's restaurant in
They gonna say she froze to death from being in the freezer for too long. I think that's what they gonna say. They gotta say that.
New Iberia, just 30 minutes south of Lafayette, Louisiana.
She been in the freezer for too
On
long.
May 11th, around 9 a.m., Les started her opening duties as the floor manager. This included counting the inventory and checking items like buns and meat from the walk-in freezer. What she didn't know was that there had been problems with the latch on the freezer door lately. The freezer was around minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which is fine for short periods, except as soon as Le tried to exit, she realized the door wouldn't budge. Typically, freezer doors like these are built to be thick and heavy to create a proper seal, which, unfortunately for Le, created a sound barrier as well. And to make things even worse, she didn't have her phone on her to call for help.
Oh.
Sadly, no matter how hard she banged on the door, none of her coworkers heard her. I mean, in all fairness, fast food kitchens can get pretty loud. It wasn't until 6 hours later that her son, Nguyen, who had just started his evening shift, came across the devastating scene.
Damn, and her son
Sadly,
worked with
his
her,
mother
bro?
was completely frozen with bloody hands from
Her
beating
son
on the
worked
door.
with her.
After the tragedy, Nguyen and his siblings sued Arby's for unsafe working conditions. It was later revealed that the freezer door was broken and employees had been using a screwdriver to open it for months. How do you not report something like that? I mean, come on. Dying from hypothermia is one of the worst ways to go. In minus 10 degree conditions like Arby's freezer, it would kick in after around half an hour. When you're
First, oh, bro, no. That is so bad. Like, bro, for months, you said for months that he said for months straight, they were using a screwdriver to open, I guess to budge the refrigerator, or not refrigerator, to budge the freezer door open. But at the same time, bro, what? gang. As soon as my mother dies, gang, from something like that, first thing I'm doing is telling them, look at the camera to see who was doing that shit. I ain't gonna lie. See who was using a screwdriver to open a door and now reporting it. No legal action has to be done. Nobody has to get locked up. But at the same time, gang, you can't work there no more. You're banned or something. And I'm suing them. Everybody's getting sued. Cause what the fuck? What is
Your
that?
body temperature drops significantly like this, your nervous system,
What is
heart,
that,
and
bro?
other organs begin to shut down. You'll start shivering, grow dizzy and confused, and eventually pass out and die. This next story might make you think twice about where you hold your work meetings. The Erfurt latrine disaster. In July of 1184, in the medieval city of Erfurt, now considered central Germany, a meeting was set to resolve an ongoing land dispute between Landgrave Louis III of Thuringia and Archbishop Conrad of Mainz. On his father's orders, 18-year-old King Henry VI was brought in to mediate with the help of several nobles. Henry VI decided the meeting should take place on the upper floor of a 2-story building next to the Erfurt Cathedral. Whether it was for the view or his lofty ambition, it's hard to say why. What he didn't know was that right under the ground floor was a sewage pit. Not exactly the modern plumbing we're used to. Think of it like the bottom of a giant outhouse. Everything was going fine in the meeting. Members of Henry's court arrived, along with many nobles and bishops. What Henry and the others failed to realize was the poor condition of the upper floor's rotting wooden support beams. With one noble too many on it, the floor collapsed, and the impact broke through the ground floor beneath it. Between 60 to 100 people fell directly into a cesspool of human waste. Most died from injuries from the fall or by being crushed by debris.
Oh my god.
But even those who survived the fall could not escape to safety and suffocated in a vat of excrement stew. Okay, wow, new nightmare unlocked. Luckily for Henry and Archbishop Conrad, they were sitting on a stone alcove by a window and avoided the fate of the others. As for Landgrave Louis, he wasn't so lucky, but was eventually rescued. After the incident, Henry ditched town to resume his military campaign and left Louis and Conrad to settle the dispute. Let's just say Henry didn't take shit from anybody. This next story turns up the heat and might change your perspective on kayaks. Alan Catterall, Kayak Factory of Fear. For 54-year-old Alan Catterall, what started as a typical day at Piranha Moldings, a kayak factory in Cheshire, England, turned into a living hell. Alan had been with the company for 12 years and had worked his way up to senior supervisor. Just a couple days before Christmas in 2010, he was tasked with cleaning out an oven where plastic was molded to form new kayaks. This oven was hotter than your typical home variety, reaching 536 degrees Fahrenheit. Alan's coworker and future son-in-law, Mark Francis, was planning on proposing to his daughter that week. Mark's job was to operate the oven that Alan was cleaning. Sadly, he failed to notice that Alan was inside. He pushed the button to turn it on, and the door automatically closed shut. As the temperature began to rise, Alan banged on the door and screamed for help, which wasn't much use considering how noisy the factory floor was. In a matter of minutes, black smoke filled the factory and alerted workers nearby that something was horribly wrong.
He got burnt to death.
When they opened the oven door, they found Alan's roasted corpse burnt to a crisp.
Oh my god.
Melted skin was also found on the door, likely from Alan grabbing it in desperation. His devastated wife Pearl, who also worked for the company, blamed Piranha Moldings for the accident. A health and safety executive, Martin Haywood, revealed that the oven doors were set to automatically close whenever the electrical supply was switched back on, a warning the factory had ignored several times before. A lawsuit was filed against the oven's designer, technical director Peter Macarith, who was found guilty of breaches of the Health and Safety Act. The company was also found guilty of corporate manslaughter and was
April 2nd, that's my
fined
birthday.
over £200,000 or about 260,000 USD today.
Shaq.
As it turns out, there wasn't sufficient training on how to use the ovens and properly clean them safely. Since then, escape hatches have been added. What an absolute tragedy. And once again, this just goes to show how a simple oversight can lead to unthinkable horrors. Our heart goes out to all the families and friends of the victims we mentioned today. Hopefully with better safety guidelines.
Hey, nah, W video, man, but that's crazy. Like I said, I'm gonna drop my Instagram right here, man. Follow my Instagram, man, and send me some videos for me to react to, bro. I really appreciate it, man. For everybody that will do it, like I said, I'll shout you out on the next video. The video that you send me, I'm shouting you out on.